So they moved into the neighborhood 2 years ago, in the autumn, into the Tomlinson place. No one knew anything about them before they arrived, not even the Tomlinsons. All Joe could say was that they seemed nice enough. A young couple, no kids, but probably, they would have kids. Time for some young blood on the street. A renewal. Joe and Millie had renewed themselves into one of those condos by the water. Our kids are gone, said Millie. 37th floor. Wait till you see it, said Joe. You can see forever, said Millie. The new people had a dog. First Dave saw of them was the dog, and then the wife, jogging along behind it. She was wearing a stretchy running outfit, gray with yellow piping. It was the day after they moved in. Dave reported the sighting as soon as Morley got home. A black dog, he said, about the size of Arthur. She looked, and he was talking about the wife now, not the dog, and he almost said pretty. He almost said she looked pretty, but at the last moment he thought better of that. Instead of pretty, he decided to say nice. She looked nice, but pretty was already halfway out his mouth, so it came out price. She looked price, said Morley. Pricey, said Dave, not missing a beat. She was wearing one of those expensive jogging outfits. Now that was a professional move, thought Dave. That was smooth. Except Morley was shaking her head. Amateur move, said Morley. Thankfully, the phone rang just then. I'll get it, said Dave, and he jumped up and ran from the table. The Turlingtons had everyone over for a barbecue to welcome the new couple. They seemed charming enough. Maybe she was a bit enthusiastic, a little smiley, but not unpleasant. Her name was Joanne. Joe, she said, hand extended. She was in publicity. She told stories about authors they had all read, Malcolm Gladwell, Tom Clancy, and the British guy, the spy guy. John le Carré, said Joe. She had toured with him twice. She called him David. Le Carré is a pen name, she said. His real name is David Cornwell. He likes Indian food, curries. Dave liked her. I like her, said Dave when they got home. Morley was less effusive. Name dropper, said Morley. You don't go on and on about all the people you've worked with, and you've worked with just as many interesting people as she has. Then she said, and he seems a little precious, don't you think? He was a corporate lawyer, real estate stuff. Jordan and Joe, J and J. You watch, said Morley, they're going to start renovating any day. They started in the spring. And it wasn't one of those upgrade the kitchen cabinets and do the windows type renovations. By the second summer, the Tomlinson place looked completely different, even from the outside. Nobody had been inside. But from the outside, it looked like the Tomlinsons had taken their place with them when they left. And Jordan and Joe had built a different one in its place, a modern one. One afternoon that fall, Morley was standing on the sidewalk with Mary Turlington, and they were watching two guys in canvas jackets drop some sort of dwarf tree into the center of the newly graveled yard. You know what this must be costing, said Morley. Now, she didn't say that bitterly. Her feelings were less complicated than that. She was just put off. Something about these people irked her. Probably it was the extent of the reno. as if her neighborhood wasn't good enough the way it was. Mary Turlington, on the other hand, was straightforward, envious. "You know how much this must be costing," said Morley. "I know," said Mary enviously. "They must have spent a fortune." "Dave called it the first night," said Morley. "Pricey." Then one afternoon, this is back before Christmas, this is last autumn. One afternoon last autumn, Morley was home alone around 5 o'clock fixing supper, and the doorbell rang, and there was Joanne standing on the stoop. "Hello," said Morley. Come in," which she immediately regretted saying. She was immediately embarrassed, thinking to herself, "Why did I say that?" Because coming into Dave and Morley's house is, quite frankly, a bit of a feat. You have to really want to get in. Through the front door, anyway. There are shoes everywhere, and shopping bags, and backpacks, and junk mail, and while you're stepping over and around the shoes and the backpacks, you have to avoid the coats protruding from the wall hooks and the banister and the hall table. Why, to get from the front door to the relative safety of the living room, you have to slide down the hall like a surgical scope. Morley didn't actually mean for her to come all the way in, certainly not all the way to the living room. That part happened inadvertently. There was no room to stand comfortably in the front hall, so once she was through the door, they both sort of shuffled along the hall, where things got worse and worse until before Morley knew what was happening, they had passed the living room and they were staring at the cat who was standing on the counter drinking out of the sink. "I wasn't intending on coming in," said Joanne. "I wasn't intending on it either," thought Morley. But there they were, and Joanne was telling Morley how she and Jordan were going away for 3 weeks to Italy, Tuscany, Cinque Terre, Rome. The dog was going to the Casa de Canine. But there was a fish. Joanne was going to say she was wondering if she could hire their son, Sam, to look after the fish, but before she said anything more, Morley, anxious to get her out of there, jumped in. "I'd be delighted," said Morley. And that is how Morley came to be the first one in the neighborhood to go inside their house. It was, simply put, out of this world. It was unlike any house Morley had ever been in, ever. She'd seen pictures and magazines, but nothing like this. Nothing like this because, well, first off, because it was effectively empty, not literally empty. There was stuff there, but empty is the sense that it gave you. It was face-to-face, nose-to-nose, eyeball to eyeball, the calm to Morley's storm, the up to her down, the counter, the contra, and oh my God, look at that. It was the big empty table in the foyer, marble, with one solitary flower. "Oh, don't worry about the orchid," said Joe. "It's going to the conservatory." "It's stunning," said Morley. The orchid was white. The floors were gray, polished concrete, heated polished concrete. There was one couch in the living room. One. A big white couch. The ceilings were high. The walls were empty except for the wall beside the gas fireplace. On that wall, there was a huge portrait of their dog playing poker. The fish was upstairs in the den. There was a package of frozen bloodworms in the stainless steel stand-up freezer, imported from Iceland. The worms, that is. The freezer came from Denmark. As she walked home, Morley was imagining how she was going to describe the place to Dave, chewing over the words she might use: modern, contemporary, minimalist. It was certainly that. She actually said it out loud as she walked onto her porch: minimalist. It applied just the right degree of sophistication. And Morley was feeling pretty sophisticated herself for having just been there. Then she reached out to let herself into her house, and her front doorknob came off in her hand. A few days later, at work, Morley was trying to describe the place to her colleagues there. 3 of them sitting in the office, eating sandwiches. Morley sitting on her desk. "The bathroom," said Morley. I'm not sure I can do the bathroom." "Take your time," said Darren. 3 nights she had been going, and she'd only just found the bathroom. "It's not like I'm snooping," she said. "Why not?" said Darren. "For God's sake, snoop." And so she told them about the bathroom. "Well, it's big," she said. Now, imagine a bedroom, a good-sized bedroom. Now empty it out and dim the lights. She was clearly loving the bathroom. "I'm not sure," she said, "that there were flowers, but imagine flowers. The walls are gray. There are 7 shower heads, 1 on top, and then 2 rows aimed at your body. And it's in the corner with no stall. It's a wet room. And in the middle of it all, well, she had put her sandwich down now. She had her eyes closed because she could see it perfectly in her mind's eye. The tub in the middle of the room, not tucked apologetically into the corner. Maybe the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. An infinity tub," said Morley. "Big enough for 2. A perfect rectangle with a rim around the edge so you can fill it completely to the top, and the water pours over the rim and into a gutter." She went over every night after supper. First few nights she fed the fish and then left, in and then out. The 3rd night, the night she saw the tub, that was also the night that she first sat on the couch, just for a moment, just to see what it felt like. There was a design magazine on the glass coffee table. She sat down and then she picked up the magazine and leafed through it, but not for long. The next night, she brought a book. Just 1 chapter, she said. Sitting on the sofa, after all, wasn't snooping. By the end of the week, she had decided she could spend an hour, but no more. It wasn't snooping, it was house sitting. Anyway, whatever it was probably a good idea if it looked as if people were living in the house. She sat on the couch under a cashmere throw that she found in the den. Next Monday, as she was heading over, a smile on her face, and was that a skip in her step? There was Dave. "What are you doing over there?" he said. "Seems to be taking you longer every night." "Exactly how many fish are there?" She stared at her husband across the kitchen. He was standing between a basket of dirty laundry and a half-unloaded dishwasher. "Okay," she said, "you can come, but we're not snooping, and we're not staying." "I've been sitting here," said Morley, pointing at the couch. Dave picked up a remote control and pointed at the fireplace. The fireplace flared on. "Dave," said Morley. He grinned and shrugged his shoulders. "Come on." "Well," said Morley, "okay, but just 5 minutes." The thing was, without the clutter of all her things, Morley felt completely relaxed. It's so tranquil, she said. She glanced at their couch when they got home. There was a week's worth of newspapers piled up at one end. No wonder she felt the weight of the world settling on her. So Dave started going over there with her. Without talking about it, they established a routine. They would finish supper, do the dishes, and then head over. On Saturday, Dave flipped on the fireplace and produced a bottle of wine from his coat. Morley was already curled up on the couch. Just one glass, said Morley. On Sunday, Dave produced cheese and a baguette. As he flipped on the fireplace, Morley said, last time. Really, she said, half an hour later. Last time. It was past 11 when she said, we should go. But she didn't sound convinced. On Monday, Sam said, what are you guys doing over there anyway? Seems to be taking you longer every night. Morley said, just checking on the fish. Sam said, it takes two of you to look after a fish? Morley said, okay, you can come. But no snooping. And just 10 minutes. We're not staying. While she fed the fish, Sam found an elliptical trainer in the basement. When he came upstairs, he said, there's a sauna. Can we use the sauna? Morley reacted with horror. No, she said, no. We're not using anything here. We're just taking care of the fish. She had considered how nice it would be if they could treat it like their own. She'd considered how nice it could be if they could move in. So that every time she flushed a toilet, she wouldn't have to jiggle a toilet handle until she heard something in the tank go clunk. So she would have a stove where all the burners worked on all the settings, not just the back left one. So she would have a house where every door frame, every wall, every floor wasn't nicked, cut, scratched, and scuffed. Truthfully, in her heart of hearts, Morley wanted her house to look like a house that her family didn't live in. Jordan and Joe were due back that Saturday evening. On Friday after dinner, Morley said she was going over by herself. Dave said, what's in the backpack? Morley said, cleaning stuff. I want to make sure we leave it perfect. She unpacked as soon as she got there. A dozen candles, a hairdryer, a terry cloth robe, 2 towels, and a bottle of bath salts. She hadn't said what she was going to clean. She fed the fish. Then she carried the stuff upstairs and stared at the tub. It was a foolish idea. She knew better. She wasn't actually going to do it. She actually said that out loud. I'm not going to do it, she said. As she said it, she was arranging the candles at the foot of the tub. It's hard to describe a moment of complete perfection. But that moment, that night, lying in that steaming tub by the flickering light of her candles, might be as close as Morley has ever come. She sank into the benevolence of the water and felt herself float away in a world of warm oils, mysterious fragrances, and silk curtains billowing in the wind. She thought it would be good. It was better than anything she had ever imagined. She was standing there wrapped in her white robe, blow-drying her hair, lost in the wonder of it when they came home. Her hairdryer was so loud that Morley didn't hear the door open. It was Joanne who came upstairs and found her. Joanne who came upstairs and into the bedroom and stood there by the bed, staring at the sight of Morley, her back to the door, wrapped in her white robe, holding the hairdryer up in the flickering candlelight, the glass of wine on the counter beside her, and worst of all, singing, staying alive, and doing all the moves. It took Joanne a moment to comprehend what she was looking at. When she did, when she absorbed it and deciphered it and understood it, she turned around and ran downstairs. Morley still didn't have a clue she had been spotted, didn't have a clue she wasn't all alone. But as soon as she turned off the hairdryer, she knew. Because as soon as she turned off the hairdryer, she heard their voices, clear as day. Jordan's first. "I am so bagged," said Jordan. "Let's order out." Good God. They were home. "I want to go out," said Joe. "It's our last night. I want to take you out." Then there was silence. Morley heard someone's feet on the stairs, and she took an involuntary step backwards, and then another. Someone was coming up the stairs. She clutched her robe around her throat. And then the someone coming up the stairs said, "I'm showering first." It was Jordan. Morley was cowering in the corner, and that's how he would have found her, cowering in the corner of his bathroom, clutching her robe closed. But he didn't. "Jordan," said Joanne, "I'm starving. No shower. Let's go." And just like that, the footsteps stopped. And Morley heard the sound of him going down the stairs and the sound of them going out. As soon as she was sure they were gone, she began to pack up. She blew out the candles and wiped down the tub and put everything back in her pack. It was only when she finished that she saw the purse on their bed. When she saw the purse on the bed, she knew what had happened. Someone had been up there, and it had to have been Joanne. Joanne had seen her. Joanne had covered for her. That's why they'd gone out to dinner, so Morley could escape. She slunk back across the street. "What took so long?" said Dave. "Must be really clean over there." The flowers came 2 days later. They came with a handwritten note. "Thanks for looking after the place. The fish is fine, plump enough to eat. The place looks great. We appreciate it. It looks like we're going again in the spring. Jordan has clients in Rome. Let me know if we could impose again. There's a sauna in the basement." I was thinking you might enjoy it. Morley will tell this story one day, but not for a while. Still too close to the bone for that. So far, the only person she's told is Dave, but in years to come, she will tell others, but only after Joanne and Jordan leave the neighborhood. When she does, She'll say it was outrageous that she got into that bath. I don't know what I was thinking, she'll say. But I do know this. I came to like her. She was a good neighbor, kind, but never more so than that night. That was the kindest thing she ever did for me. I think about it often.